we'll go over to.
Yeah. And
Okay. Oh yeah. Get a green light on. Okay, we are live. So let's do this. And now.
Welcome to Art's Place, conservative talk from a different view, from the Casablanca studio in Golden, Colorado. Hosted by Art Carlson. At 4'6", liberals fear him, and conservatives love him. He's definitely a giant among men. Now here's your host, Art Carlson.
Alrighty, welcome to another episode of ArtCo Drone Solution. I have a big pleasure of introducing my new co-host, Lloyd Mendenhall. Say hi, Lloyd.
how you doing, Art?
I am
Uh,
doing super. Uh, Boy, I'm just so excited to have someone else to talk to other than me talking by myself for an hour, talking about events and uh, politics and all that neat stuff. So,
a- Absolutely. I've been doing this for a while too, and I've got to have a co-host. And let me say, just shameless plug here, real quick, for my show tomorrow night. I just asked you. I'm going to have you on as my guest
I,
tomorrow night,
great, super.
but my co-host will be Claude. And if that doesn't work out, you're going to be my co-host. We'll see how it
Okay,
works out. Either way, you're going to be on the show tomorrow night. I've got it
super.
figured out. We're going to do some things here over the next few weeks on your show
Okay,
to kind of get things looking up to snuff too, for
right,
on both our parts.
right. All right, let's jump into it right now. Let's talk about the Mueller report and how the Democrats are having a big meltdown over that because it didn't turn out like they thought it would be. Turns out no collusion, uh, and Mueller couldn't find anything about obstruction of justice, but he left an opening by saying, well, Congress can investigate if there's any obstruction of justice.
Yeah, I mean, that was the most. Here's the thing: that whole investigation was the backup plan in case Hillary lost. I mean, we all know that it was an obvious sham. It was the most ridiculous waste of American taxpayers' money of anything I ever heard about. And so when that didn't turn out, I mean, they had the cards stacked against this guy, against the president. And,
Right.
guess what? They lost. They lost the election. Now they've lost the investigation. They need to put on their big boy pants, grow up, and move on.
That's right. I mean, the Democrats thought, oh, this Donald Trump, he's so unlikable, and nobody's going to vote for him. And yet, he did all the right things that Hillary didn't do. He went to the blue states and had huge rallies where he had overflowing crowds in arenas where Hillary Clinton was barely getting, filling up a hall. And she didn't bother going to places like Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, all the states that she should have won to help Donald Trump get over the top.
Well, and that's it. She was so out of touch with reality. She thought she had the fix in all the way,
Right.
and it just didn't turn out. And so their backup plan was to, let's get him for collusion. That was the. I mean, Okay. There's this thing they're talking about. I've seen about Facebook. Okay, well, they interfered on Facebook. Guess what? I don't follow Facebook. That's not why I voted for the guy.
Right.
Facebook did not, and anybody, and if these, this is your channel, but I am co-hosting. So
Yeah.
if these
Go ahead.
idiots think that if these idiots think that Facebook is what influenced intelligent people to vote, well,
Right.
then they're as clueless as anybody. I mean, it's a sad reality. And here's the other thing. The guy, I mean, they've got somebody like Biden who's now talking about running.
Oh,
He is not, he's an old Democrat. He's the old school. The new Democrats are like this,
oh,
what is her
yeah.
name? Cortez?
Yeah, AOC we call it for short.
Yeah, exactly. People like that, they're socialists. They're far left wing, and the Democrats. I'm sorry, the only thing the Democrats, the old school Democrats, what they call the blue dog Democrats, the ones that are from the South and have the Southern values. I hate to say it, they're going to have to join the Republicans. And that's the other thing. This is what the other problem was so many of the Republicans were anti-Trump that they allowed this crap to go on. What were they going to do? Let Hillary run I mean, they just, I'm still frustrated by it.
Right. I agree. Even my own Republican senator, I was just pulling my hair out saying, why are you saying stuff like that? And so I've made enemies on both sides within the Republican Party here in Colorado because I'm frustrated with Cory Gardner saying some dumb stuff, and I'm like, oh, whose side are you on? Come on, get with the program,
Yeah.
and back your leader, Donald Trump. Is he perfect? No, but heck, he's getting things done.
Right.
To me, I think he's getting more things done than Ronald Reagan ever did.
He's done more in his first 2 years. Reagan never had his hands tied like Donald Trump.
Right.
Reagan could reach across the aisle. Nobody on either side of the aisle wants to shake hands with Donald Trump for the most part.
Right.
And, this last election we just had this last year, it was the Republicans to lose, and they did.
Yep, that's right.
The problem is the Democrats nor the Republicans right now, they're not separated by much. What has come down to is the socialist and the socialist agendas have taken over both parties. I have a guy that I follow who's he's pretty well connected in some really tight places, and one of the things is he talks about the peace at any cost party, and that's what they wanted. They wanted, they want to let's all sit around sing kumbaya, hold hands, and smoke a joint and be happy.
Right.
Hey, guess what? That goes to show you what legalized pot does to them and made them all stupid.
Yep. Yeah. And I agree. The thing is, here in Colorado, we have two factions that are divided. Well, we've got one faction that's an offshoot of the Tea Party movement, the Liberty movement, and it's being spearheaded by a phony Second Amendment group called Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, which is led by this fellow named Dudley Brown. And his agenda is let the Democrats run the state because you know why? That brings in a lot more money to his organization than if there was a Republican in, because he could use scare tactics. And with the Democrats running everything, and now we've got the red flag bill that will go into effect next January, that even more millions of dollars are coming in. Just the other day, I saw a posting on Facebook how Dudley Brown has a lawsuit going against the red flag bill, and I commented that this thing is going to fail because he wants it to fail. And guess who popped up? Dudley Brown made a comment on it. I didn't read it because I know he's going to just kind of chew my ass out, calling me a flippin' crazy loser. And I used to be a big supporter of Rocky Mountain gun owners up until about 2014 when we had an activist on one of the local radio shows that she's a Republican, but they don't like Dudley Brown because of some of the tactics he and his candidates that he supports use. So he calls up this radio show. It's a conservative talk show, and he told this lady to shut her pie hole. I'm like, going, really? You're going to talk like that to somebody? You lost my support, and that just shows me what his true agenda is. He wants to destroy the Republican Party here in Colorado, and he wants to be the kingmaker.
Well, it's not just in Colorado. These groups are doing this all over the United States. I mean, this is what it comes down to. The Republicans from Ronald Reagan days are gone. The Republicans, as we know it. Same with the Democrats from Jimmy Carter days. The type of Democrat he was back then. And I mean, I was not a fan of his. I served under him. I worked, and I know how disastrous his spending bills were.
Right.
And especially when it related to the military. And I mean, those of us that were around, who can forget the Iran hostage situation? Iran Contra was the next president, but his heart was in the right place.
Yeah.
And getting back to the Donald Trump thing and talking about this Mueller report and everything, the problem is the Republicans the conservatives that were supposed to be there didn't support him because he might have actually.
He's not part of the group. He's an outsider that came in, spent a lot of his own money, and he used that. He's a whiz at marketing. And he's never served office, and I think that put off a lot of Republicans.
Well, I've always said, and I said this to somebody, you followed me, or you've seen me on probably Claude's live streams a few times, because I've been on there quite a bit. One of the things, Ari comes on there, and he doesn't like Trump, but he's Australian, so it doesn't matter. And I told him, I said, well, that's fine. It's not your choice. He's not your president. He's mine.
Right.
But, and I'm going to say this, and I apologize in advance, but, I said this, that if you've got to have an asshole in office, I'd rather him be your asshole, or be my asshole. And he is. He might be an ass, but he's mine. I voted for him. And the thing is he's probably closer to, because you look at Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan started out as a Democrat.
Yes, that's right.
But they started leaning towards the socialist agenda, and that's when he left. And that was in the early stages. We're talking in the 50s, and I mean that's why he and Jane Wyman divorced, because he had conservative values, and he wanted to be a Republican and be in politics, and she didn't agree with the Republicans' point of view, and that was part of the reason they divorced. Well, now we got Donald Trump, who is a new Reaganist. He runs it like Reagan was smart enough that he could reach across the aisles and work with people. But if you look at the people he worked with across the aisle, they were conservative Democrats, or what they call blue dog Democrats. Those guys don't exist anymore, and unfortunately, there's not too darn many of them in the Republican Party that are true conservative, social, fiscal conservatives, political and military conservatives. Those are what we need. Social conservatives. I think you first off, I don't believe that you can legislate morality.
That's right.
So having a social agenda related to your politics, I mean, because you and I both have talked, you and I have talked, and some of my views are a little, someone could see closer to center than they are to the left. But when it comes to the military, when it comes to gun rights and the Constitution,
Right.
when it comes to the business of the country and how it should be run, I'm very conservative. You know,
Yep.
I'm not over there at the far. I'm not a national socialist, which is what a lot of people think we are that are of the conservative ilk. They think we're Nazis. You know, these idiots nowadays don't even have any clue what a Nazi is.
That's right. They don't understand that they were socialists. That's what Nazi stands for. National Socialist Party.
Yeah, exactly. National Socialist Party, and they don't understand that, and that's just it's just a really.
Well, what they
I'm sitting
did
here
is
looking
they changed the terminology. Anybody they
Right.
didn't like, they call it a Nazi. That's their version of saying doo-doo head, you know.
Right,
And
right.
So, and that's been going on for decades. I mean, I remember back
Oh,
in
yeah.
the 60s and early 70s where people that didn't agree with Republicans, they called them Nazis.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've got 3 people watching. Wow.
Oh, do we? Well, I hope that they chime in. I did put it out on Twitter,
Yeah.
you know, and but yeah, let's see, I did put it out on Twitter, so I hope that they will, you know, if they've got a comment, put it up in the chat so that we can respond to it. And but I mean, you and I both knew that we were conservatives here, and that, you know, not everybody that follows us on our other channels will necessarily follow us on this channel, you know.
Yeah.
But it's you know, I think as time goes on, I think I see us doing good things with this, you know.
Yeah, I do. I agree. I think so too. So the way I look at what I learned about politics is that we're on a spectrum between 1 and 9, and 4 or 5 is like right down the center. When you get further to the right, you get less and less government. The further out there, then you got anarchists that don't want any government.
Exactly.
You go to the left of the spectrum, the further left you have more and more government, more control, less liberty, less freedom, and that's how I look at it.
Yeah. Oh no, you nailed it right there. I mean, if you go to the number 1 slot, that's where you have what you call the anarchists. You know, those are the survivalists that live up in the woods. That you know, and there's nothing wrong with living in the woods and living off the grid to help the environment. You know, if that's what you want to do. But, and I've said this so many times that, you know, we have to give up certain amounts of rights and privileges to live in a civilized society. And you know, and what they're, you know, they don't want to live in a civilized society. They want to live in a I think I got somebody at the door, so you might want to flip me over to your channel and talk a little bit, and I'll be right back. Okay, let me double check.
Will do.
All right.
All right, so we are back while Lloyd goes and takes care of his stuff, and hopefully that's just a short intermission. Let's talk a little bit about the coup or the uprising in Venezuela. yeah, the last few days. Oh, it looks like Lloyd is back. So, okay, let's.
Yeah.
All
Sorry
righty.
about my dogs, and I'm expecting the lady that does our housekeeping on Sundays
Right.
to show up, and I thought that's who it was. It's actually a neighbor across the street. So,
Ah,
pardon
yep.
me, but yeah, I'm probably, if one being the anarchists that live out in
Well,
the
no,
woods, and
actually, it's the other way around, Lloyd.
the
The
other way
higher
around.
up.
Okay,
Yeah.
so whichever side of that spectrum you're on,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not at the far right. I'm probably closer to the, let's say, let's do 1 through 10. Let's say 5 is the
Okay.
middle. I'm
Right.
probably, uh, if 10 being the anarchist and 1 being the social communist,
Right.
well, then I'm probably about a 7,
Yeah.
because I am for smaller government. I think we've got too much government intrusion right now. Uh, and this is the other thing. I mean, you're talking about the what is it? The red flag law, which is what
Yeah. That's
that's
where.
the
Uh,
neighbor can say, "Oh, I think he's a fruitcake," and they'll go to the judge and they'll come in and take your guns away, and then you've got to go to a hearing and prove that you're not a fruitcake.
yep. That's right.
And in Colorado, I don't see how they'd ever disprove most of those people aren't fruitcakes, but that's just. But once we start allowing, I carry, okay,
Right.
and right. I mean, yeah, right over there is that's my target that I used to qualify on is
Right.
center mass and in the head. Two
Mm.
two places I shot at. So, but I hope to never ever have to use that pistol. But I want the right to be able to carry it.
Mhm.
And but do I think I need an M16 or an AR-15 to go out deer hunting? Not really.
Mhm.
Do I think I need one to protect me? Not today.
Mhm. Yeah.
But the time may come if our government chooses to become so totalitarian with the leftist agenda
Right.
that I might be glad I got one. But
Right.
right now, do I need it? I don't think so. But so I'm kind of torn between that. But here's the point. We start giving up certain rights. We start giving up certain privileges we have, our constitutional rights.
Right.
That just each little piece that they chip off is another
Right.
piece of our constitution they're breaking away,
Mhm. Yeah, and I
So
agree. Yeah, they,
that was my wife yelling at the dogs.
they
I have a video monitor here, and she has a camera sitting next to the bed, so I can keep an eye on her. So
right.
sometimes I have to have it up loud enough for me to hear, but sometimes it comes through. So you'll
Gotcha.
occasionally hear her say something or call me. In that case,
Right.
she was yelling at the dogs. But anyways, as you were saying,
I was looking at some old posts. You know how every day on Facebook it'll say memories and it shows you previous posts. And I saw one from 2009 where the Democrats here in Colorado tried to float a bill to do away with the Electoral College. Well, fast forward to now, that's exactly what this legislative session did, which ended Friday, and they did away with it. I don't know how they could do that because that's part of the Constitution, and they have to amend the Constitution if they want to repeal that.
well, here's the thing. They can't do away with the electoral college. I mean, that's constitutional. Okay. But what they can do is they can do away with each state sets out their own, each state sets out their own,
The way they get
interpretation of that. Yeah. The way they
right,
distribute
yeah,
allocate those points. So some states it's a winner take all. Some states it's a 50-50 split, or it's a 30-40, or
Right.
whatever the voting way is. And, I mean,
Yeah,
and
there
of
are
course,
two states that do that. Nebraska and Maine do that. Where
that
it's
split
out.
it.
Yeah, I believe that's
Yeah.
how it's.
Yeah. And so that's, as far as Colorado saying they're repealing it, well, okay, they voted as a legislative body to repeal that particular part of the Constitution, but it's going to have it's got to have, I don't know, 33 states to ratify that. And it hasn't even been sent through uh, the federal government yet. So whatever they did was just a moot point,
Right.
uh, because all anybody has to do, the Republicans, all they have to do is, if they've got the cojones, is just sue and say, hey, this is
Yeah.
unconstitutional.
Yeah,
Boom.
that's
And
what they're going to do. And plus, it's
yeah,
not really a repeal. It's what they did is they enter into a compact with several other states stating that if they reach a point of, I think, 270 electoral votes, then then it turns into a popular vote instead of a electoral college
yeah,
vote.
well, that's unconstitutional. They can't do that,
Right.
and it's just real simple. Now, I don't know if you've got one of these, but Hilldale College gives them out, and I recommend you go to them. Hillsdale
Hillsdale.
College.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Do you have one of
Wisconsin.
these?
Yep. I got one of
Yeah.
those. Hmm.
And man, there's a lot of good information. I think anybody
Right.
who's watching this channel, or anybody in the future that watches this, they need to they need to have a copy of this if you're concerned about you. And I don't care which party you vote for, or which party you belong to.
Right.
You need to know your Constitution.
Hmm.
Uh, Here's something that goes back to Bill Clinton. And I sat there, and man, when he became president, he enacted a new tax right off. Okay, and he made that tax retroactive to the beginning of the fiscal year, which was actually October 1st. Okay,
Right.
before he was even the president, but
Uh-huh.
he retroacted that so that everybody that first year had to pay more taxes because
I
you know he made it, and that was unconstitutional, and nobody called him on it.
Well, I think what happened was because the president cannot legislate, so I don't know how he did that. And plus,
He used
well,
a
oh,
he
I know
used
what he did. He did have a Democrat-controlled House and Senate, and that's
yes,
probably how
yes,
that passed. Yeah.
yeah, he did have that at the time, and that's why 2 years
The Republic.
later the
Yeah.
Republicans took over by storm because
Yep.
what he did. But nobody called him on it, and this is the problem. This has been the problem with Republicans since Bill Clinton's days.
Yep.
They don't have what it takes to step up and say this is unconstitutional. I mean, Barack Obama pulled more crap than
Right.
than Carter had peanuts on his plantation.
Right. Right.
Uh, that was unconstitutional, and nobody called him on it.
Right.
But you know I'm hogging your show, and I
Oh,
apologize.
that's okay. That's okay. I like a little bit of give and take. And the other thing that I like about Donald Trump that George W. Bush really disappointed me on was calling out the media. Whenever the media tries to twist the facts or twist content, uh, to try to make him look bad. That's why he comes out and says, you're fake news. And if George
Yeah.
Bush would have done more of that, I think the Democrats wouldn't have taken control in his second term.
Well, I think here's couple things about Bush, and I was disappointed. I voted for him. I voted
Right.
for both of them, and I was disappointed in George W. in several respects. Was one, I think he, he had to fight hard to get that spot. I mean, they
Right.
fought him tooth and toenail right up the end, and that was the beginning of the kind of politics we've got now.
Yeah.
And okay, his problem is what he should have done was, first off, as much as I might have approved of Dick Cheney, he should not have made Dick Cheney his vice president. The guy was too old and too bad of health because the idea is you get a vice president candidate who is going to be your predecessor, hopefully, when your 8 years in term are up.
Right.
Dick Cheney was not qualified to do that because of his health alone. Okay. And, like
Yeah.
even George Bush says, he shot the only trial lawyer that ever supported him. So, it's just,
Yeah.
but that's it. So and there was that. And then he used too much of his father's old guard stuff, and
Right.
it needed to, there needed to be a younger of
younger
conservatives.
base. Yes.
Younger people that were conservatives, not leftovers from when his dad was in, because I mean, Clinton had been in for 8 years and his dad had been in, and some of these guys came in off of the Reagan train.
Right.
And so there's 12 years that these guys had been out of office, and it was time for her to end. I think that's what hurt the Republicans in a lot, and then I thought he should have finished one war before he started another.
Yeah.
I mean, Iraq needed to be dealt with, but it comes down to this. Saddam Hussein wasn't causing us any real problems. He embarrassed his daddy, and he pissed off George W. But
Yeah.
he was keeping the Iranians in check. At least he was keeping them under control. And I think at that point we should have, let's finish up Afghanistan. Let's get that completely settled. Let's get it set up. Let's not leave a vacuum there. Finish that and then go into Iraq.
Right.
And I think that's coming from somebody who was in the military and the way I see it. Did I support us going in there? Absolutely. I think we needed to take out Saddam Hussein.
Right.
But we needed to have somebody who could step in and fill his shoes. And unfortunately, we turned it over to the Shiites, which are the ultra extremists
Right.
of that religion.
Well, here's my thought about that, where George Bush kind of dropped the ball on. Remember, after World War II, in Europe, we did what was called denazification. And we did
Yes.
something similar in Japan, where we dealt with those elements in both of those countries to make sure that those types of people did not rise back up into power. What we should have done in Iraq and Afghanistan was do a similar program to where we so to speak, denazify those regions,
Right.
by getting all the clerics and giving them an ultimatum saying, all right, you guys want to be in power? Well, here's how you're going to have to act. And you're going to have to straighten up, or you're not going to be, in the position of power.
Yeah. And this is, and I brought this term up here a while back and somebody didn't understand it, but these countries like Iran is a theocracy.
Yes,
Okay.
it
It's
is.
not a democracy, and people don't this generation has no clue what a theocracy is.
Mhm.
And it's a government based off of a
Religion,
religious
and
point of view. And
political and religious.
right.
views.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's non-secular.
yeah.
It's it's and when you go back, I mean that's what the Holy Roman Empire was, and that didn't turn out well for most of the world.
Right.
You know, so and I want to say hi to Thomas O'Sullivan. He's in here watching.
Oh, great.
Just commented.
Super. All right.
So
Oh,
he
great. We got. Okay, cool. Wonderful. Also, Lloyd, I wanted to touch on something. You've been to Iran prior to the fall of the Shah while all of that
yes.
was in flux. Now, when you were there, did you see women wearing burqas or covering their faces?
They were starting to. They were starting to wear. They were starting to wear the covers, but not the black burqas that they're wearing now. They did wear their eyes were to where you could see them, and
Right.
they weren't
The
the
head
heavy
to
dark
the
ones
toes.
because Iran, and here's the thing, for the most part, and that's where we made a mistake. That goes all the way back to Jimmy Carter again.
Yeah.
Iran was very westernized. The women in general did not wear them. Period.
Yeah, a lot of
Uh,
the Middle Eastern countries were like that. If you go to look at
yeah,
Afghanistan around Kabul, they look very Western. They dress like Western women. Same in
yeah, yeah.
Cairo, Egypt, and in Turkey. Because
Right, right.
what had happened was Jimmy Carter unleashed the Muslim Brotherhood, which brought
Yes,
about these theocracies that sprung up around the Middle East, and that's why you see a lot of these women being covered up. It's part of the law. They have to wear that. Where before, and I don't know if you know this, but prior to Sadat's assassination, Egypt had, they had their thumb on the Muslim Brotherhood. A lot of those Middle Eastern countries were had a control of the Muslim Brotherhood because they knew what would happen if they were to get a foothold in their country, and that would take a lot of the power away from these family groups that have been running the country for many decades or sometimes
right,
centuries.
right. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. And the here's here's an observation, and this goes back to, as I said, I know somebody who sends me information every so often. Have you ever noticed that when we get rid of one group, somebody else jumps back up? There's always another one of these groups, whether they be uh 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 oh, the guys that attacked the World Trade Center. My mind just went
Oh
blank.
yeah, Al
Al
Qaeda.
Qaeda.
Yeah,
All right, Al Qaeda. Okay, we had Al Qaeda and we got rid of them, and then we ended up with the
Tal
ISIS and
ISIS and
yeah, or the
Taliban.
Taliban, and then the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood is the parent of all of these different
Right.
groups,
Hmm.
but they're all part of the same group. They go into these countries and they create stable unrest.
Hmm.
And to be honest with you, they learned from the best. They learned from us
Hmm.
because that's what our CIA did for years, was go in and create stable, unstable governments, But they learned that from the socialists. That's what they did. That's how the Bolsheviks took
Hmm.
over.
Yep, that's
That's
right.
it all, and they don't teach proper history anymore. So these young kids have no clue. They just know what they see on television, and
Hmm.
they only pay attention to CBS, ABC, and NBC because the news tells them that somebody like Fox News and other groups like that are evil people.
Yeah.
And Fox News now has gotten to the point where I can't even stand to watch them because they're so liberal. They've got
Yeah,
too
they
many.
well, here's the deal. What's going on at Fox News? Old man Murdoch, he's out of the picture, and his sons are taking over the network,
Right,
and they
right.
are more liberal than he was. So
Liberal.
that's why
Yes.
you're seeing a slow progression to the left. at Fox, and I
Yeah.
stopped watching Fox years ago
Yeah.
because I just can't afford to have
Yeah, I
cable.
haven't watched it. Yeah. Well, I tune in on something when something's coming up, but for the most part, I don't watch any of that anymore because I don't even watch the news because if I want to know something, I can find it,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
true. Same
get
here.
daily updates, and
Hmm.
but yeah, and it goes back to I don't know. I'm sure you remember, as a young man hearing about this, this nation had a revolution or a coup or something like that.
Hmm.
And what's the first thing they do in a coup?
They take
They
over the
take over
radio
the
station.
radio stations and the broadcast. Yeah,
Yep. Hmm.
they've done it here. We
Hmm.
just don't know it yet. We're just,
Hmm.
this generation is too dumb to know it. And it's places like what you've got going right here is the only voice. We're
Right.
sort of the radio free Europe of the world now.
Right.
And what there's nothing like radio free Europe now. And
Right.
that's the other thing. When communism fell or created such a vacuum that, I mean, you could just hear the life being sucked out of the world. I mean, yeah, communism was bad,
Hmm.
but it was a balance because it kept these extremists like Iran and stuff like that within a you know because I guarantee you Vladimir Putin does not want a theocracy in his back door either.
Well, that's where he's repeating the mistakes that the Soviets did in 1940, signing an agreement with Germany. They're siding with Iran, and I think
Yes, I
what's
know.
going to happen is the Iranians are probably in the process of having their agents in Kazakhstan, Uzbek, all those stand countries, and
Right.
there's going to be an uprising in the future, and that's where a lot of their nuclear missiles are located. And if they're not
Yes.
careful, Iran doesn't need to really build a missile. All they have to do
No.
is get their proxies to fight in those countries, take them
Yeah.
over, and then they've got the missiles. And they
Yeah.
don't need a whole lot of missiles to really do a lot of damage. To
They only
really,
need one.
yeah, that's right. All they have to do is launch one missile, detonate it high enough over the United States, and there goes our electrical grid. And
Yeah.
within a month, you're going to see millions of people dying, not of radiation, but because there's no power to run the hospitals and to provide food and water to the
Right.
populace. But
Yeah,
here's
we'll end up looking like something off of one of Mel Gibson's old Road Warrior movies.
right, right. But here's the downside to something like that. And you may have well known that our attack submarines, missile submarines out in the oceans, if they lose contact with Washington, they automatically uh, launch their missiles.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's the problem because you know we would of course naturally attack the first enemy, and that would be the former Soviet Union or Russia,
mhm,
and unfortunately that might not be the right target to have hit.
mhm,
And it's a you're right. This is what, and that's what happened to Russia in 1940s. They agreed to make peace with Hitler, and of course, what does Hitler do? He starts rolling right on through all of their satellite countries
right,
around there, and yeah.
mhm,
So, and that's the problem when you don't teach history
right.
uh, in the
Well,
schools.
we do, but it's all revisionist history because we're the
Uh,
evil white people because we've done
well,
all these
yeah,
bad things.
they're not teaching history. They're teaching
They're
Aesop's.
indoctrinated.
Yeah, they're teaching Aesop's tales because that's not real history. That's Aesop's fairy tales, you
Yeah.
know. And you're right, it's indoctrination, and that's exactly what the socialists do. They've been indoctrinating these people since, you know, for the last 30 years. You know, I blame a lot of it on our own generation because we had the, you know, the hippie movement, you know,
Yep.
and that was, where'd that come from? That started out of Berkeley and you know, and
Yep,
you know,
that's right.
out of California where there was a big problem, you know, of a socialist movement in California. I mean, that's why there were so many blacklisted in Hollywood because they were socialists, you know.
All right,
But
so let's switch gears a little bit. We were talking about governments falling. We have this uprising in Venezuela. Starting to sound like Maduro's got the upper hand, and you know the opposition is not taking over the country, as far from what I'm hearing. But yeah, I think late this past week there's been an uprising by a guy who supposedly had some connections with the military, but it's looking like that's falling apart, and Maduro is still in power. So that whole situation is a really bad mess. I was in Venezuela back in 1990, and it's way better than it was now. Was it perfect? No, it wasn't. But you know what? Ever since Hugo Chavez took over and banned opposition parties, and not only that, but they've also confiscated guns from people so they couldn't shoot back. So, and that,
yeah, I mean, well, the current president was in the process of leaving, and the Soviet Union, or not the Soviet Union. It just shows how old school I am. But the Vladimir Putin convinced him to go ahead and stay. He was going to leave. You know, he was ready to leave, and they convinced him to stay because, you know, that's their foothold in the American
right.
continent because they
Hmm.
don't really have Cuba anymore. Cuba's not a viable source for the communist or the socialist agenda. And I know Vladimir Putin, you know, socialism was supposed to have died, but Putin was the head of the KGB. I mean, it's in his
Well, he
benefit to
wasn't
keep
head
social.
of it, but he was
Well, he
an
was a
agent.
member of it. Yeah,
Right.
he was an agent of it, and it's in his best interest. I mean, and obviously he ain't going anywhere. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
you know, he's definitely in better shape the last three presidents we've had
Right.
physically, you know,
Well, and
and
plus, what he set up is not a true socialist government, but he's got what is an oligarchy of big businesses to where they support him. Because have you ever noticed the people that are in opposition? Well, they're not in business or they're dead, especially journalists who have been, you know, going against the policies of Vladimir Putin. They end up dead.
well, I mean, yeah, it still comes down to this. It's uh, not much has changed since, in some ways, since Lenin was around. You know, as
Right.
far as that goes, you know, uh, there's still, you know, he's got people that are in business there,
Mm.
and yeah, it's not changed much. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's
Well,
still the same totalitarian government.
yeah,
They just
it
call it
is.
something different
Right, it
because
is.
socialism is not true socialism and communism.
Right.
Uh, uh, because what a lot of these young people and these idealists and ideologues think is socialism is a utopian society. It's all unicorns and rainbows and kumbaya. And we're all going to be happy and join hands and sing and
That's right.
dance and but it's not. Somebody will be in charge, and that
That's
somebody will be telling each and every one of us how to behave. Not much different than what they're doing over there.
Hmm. But
Yep.
here's the difference: is the people there can move around within their country and outside their country, where before they couldn't leave the country unless they jumped through a whole bunch of hoops to leave the country. Most of them, when they left, where did they go to? Israel.
Right.
That's why
right.
there are a lot of Russian Jews in Israel. And
Yeah,
because they got tired of dealing with them, and they didn't want to, lock them up, because that's what they've been doing since Lenin's time, and it put a black eye on the country. So they started letting
Right.
these people out. Now without communism, you could still start a business, but you just, you can't be rocking the boat, so to speak. As long
Right.
as you keep a low profile and
Granted, the average person has far more freedoms, and they don't have as much fear as they used to,
right.
up to a point. But guys like you and I, well, I don't know, something like what we're doing right now probably wouldn't be working. But just you and I going about our daily life, we wouldn't have to worry about stuff. It's only when we start becoming higher profile that we are now in the eye of the Russian government that we have something to worry about. And the average, you're right. So that's much better in that respect. There is there are some good things of that, but it still comes down to, as I said,
Control.
it comes down, it's government control, and it's which is in my opinion, is the true definition of socialism. The guys at the top telling everybody else how they have to spend their money, because look at their tax rates over there. When you see when it comes to the point where you've got people that are prostituting themselves just to be able to buy bread, or food, basically food stuff, and they're having to, some guy's having to sell his wife off, or his sister or somebody else into prostitution just so they can make ends meet. There is something wrong with that government, and that's unfortunately what is created by these totalitarian,
Right.
Basically large government, social program type systems. And
Right.
because in the end, the only people that ever get anything out of it are those at the top.
That's true. That's true. And also in Russia now, with the fall of the communism, there's more freedom of religion. Churches
That's true.
are open, and they are Eastern Orthodox Catholic.
Yes.
They're more like the Greek Orthodox.
Right.
And,
They're the Russian Orthodox. Yes.
So there's more freedom in that, and also in those Central Asian countries, there's more freedom for Islam. The people who have the freedom to go to their mosque, and I think there's probably some control there to make sure that there's no shenanigans going on there, and I think there's some other minor religious groups that are, getting the religious freedoms that they didn't have before, and that's the one thing that's that's going on here in this country, is we're starting to have less religious freedom. Have you noticed there's been a big attack on Christianity in this country?
Christianity has been attacked, and I mean, this is where people get confused about the separation of church and state. And
Mhm.
in the Constitution, it talks about that the state shall make no religion.
Right.
Chris Hope's in the house, and
Oh,
I asked how you
welcome,
doing. He says
Chris.
trying to learn
Welcome to the
about
show.
socialism. Yeah, yeah. And well, and here's the thing, that people going back to religious freedoms, what we were getting on just a minute ago, is the fact that it says the state shall make no religion. It doesn't say that. It's nowhere should it say, or does it say in the original reading of the Constitution, that they can infringe. Well, it does say they cannot infringe on religious freedoms, but yet they seem to be violating their own. We seem to be violating our Constitution on a daily basis.
Mhm.
The thing is, it's okay to. I mean, God forbid, because we talk about Islam here on this channel, because we're
Mhm.
anti-Islamic. No, we're pro-Christian, or at least I am. And unfortunately, it is Islamic extremism, which almost all of it is. Calls for the downfall of anybody who doesn't follow their tenets,
Right.
and
Mhm.
that's where the problem is. And but if we say that, then we are anti-religious, and we're violating somebody else's freedoms of
Mhm.
religion. Not to say that we can't support. In other words, we say that, and
Right.
somebody's going to jump up and down and say, "Oh, you're a hater of." No, that's
Mhm.
not what it comes down to. It's just that I have as much right to my beliefs as
They have
anybody out there has to
theirs. Yes,
theirs.
that's
No
right.
more, no less, no better, no worse. Just it is what it is.
Mhm.
I also have a right to freedom of speech and my opinion in this
Mhm.
country. Unfortunately, we are losing that right because we've had so many weak backbones that have been in our congressional leadership and even in our presidential leadership over the last 30 years
Right.
that all this has been frittered away. I mean, you go back and look at some of the stuff that even the Democrats, like they would say, "God bless you," and they would,
Yeah.
they. But now we've gotten away. I mean, this country was founded on a Judeo-Christian beliefs,
Mhm.
and that's where I think we're missing the boat on so much.
Yep.
I mean,
Mhm.
and anyways, that's my opinion. I've gone on enough.
Yep, and I agree, and that's what this channel is about. It's about exposing people to a different view. Well, not really a different view, but from conservative view. And this is where we need to start educating people that just because we have a conservative view doesn't make us homophobic, uh, uh, racist, misogynist, because uh, with me, if you're gay, I don't care. I don't care what you do in your bedroom. Just don't ram it down my throat. And that's what disappoints me with television. Local programming. It's like now we've got to have at least one gay character. Where before, Barney Miller would touch on it, but wasn't the main theme. And
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay. And you've probably seen a couple of my videos, and
right,
that's why it's also why I'm not with one of the other channels right now,
right,
because part of the joke that got put out there was about I made the comment, okay, this is where it
yeah,
comes from, about me wearing, okay, the initial thing was in one of my videos, and where I talk about, okay, I don't think we need to have a special parade for special people because of special things, because I don't want to see a bunch of guys or gals walking around in leather halter tops and leather G-strings waving a rainbow flag
hmm
because fine, if that's what you are, that's cool. more power to you,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, whatever floats your boat, folks.
Yeah.
But that would, and that's where the joke came from, is like, well, should we have a straight pride day in which I dress up in a leather thong and go topless and, with my fat belly hanging over my leather thong and hiding it, and all parade up and down? No, nobody wants to see that kind of crap. And to be honest with you, I don't want to see it either from anybody else.
Right.
And that's what they don't understand. Just because you are doesn't mean you're any more special than me. I mean, I don't, there's no white pride day. There's no straight pride day. There's no, fat old man pride day. It's
That's
just
right.
another friggin' day. You don't have to have a special day. You're just a human being. How about let's have a human pride day in which everybody has the right to be who they are and be done with it. And let's just quit this crap of separation. And that's the problem. See, everybody has to be, instead of us being Americans now, we're,
Hyphenated American.
we're hyphenated Americans, gay Americans, straight Americans, white Americans, black Americans, Native Americans,
Gimp
African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Cuban Americans, how about us just being friggin' Americans?
Yeah.
And like you said, and just because we say this, and Chris Hope put it, says they don't want us to
have one.
Archie Bunker no more.
No more. I saw that.
Yeah, they don't want us to have an opinion, and
Right.
it's okay for them to have one.
That's right. And here's another point that I wanted to bring up. A friend of mine forwarded this tweet by Jake Pentland, who is Roseanne Barr's son, and he made a statement about, well, how come this guy was left back into Disney, but my mom, she's blackballed because she made a mistake on one tweet, where this guy continues to talk about pedophile. And it's like, so there's a double standard there. I think the real reason why Roseanne was kicked out was she supported Donald Trump. That was it. That's what put him over the edge. All they had to do is wait until she made a mistake. She did, and that's it. She's done. She can't get work at comedy clubs. She'll never get a TV program ever again.
Right. Yeah.
But these other guys that have done way worse than what she's done, they let them back in. And by the way, I am trying to get Roseanne on this program. I'm trying to figure out how to get a hold of her. I made a comment on the tweet, and I said, Roseanne, I would love to have you on this program. And if she would come on this show, just imagine how this show would just blow up overnight.
It would be it would. And and that's the thing. Okay, I'm not a fan of Roseanne. I never really was. I mean, I did like the fact that she represented the working person, the average American, and it's like, the left doesn't want us to all social medias are going left. He's right.
Yep.
Who knows how long you'll be able to do this channel.
Yeah, that's true.
And here's the thing. They talk about, I've got members of our family that are gay.
Same here.
And I think the world of them. I've got mixed race great grandchildren. I've got 5 that are Native American, white, and black. Yep. And I love each one of them. I'm the farthest thing you'll get from a racist as you can get.
Right.
But also, on the other hand, I don't think that I should be ashamed of the fact that I'm a straight white old man. Like I call myself an FWOF, a fat white old fart. And I shouldn't be ashamed of that. But more and more we're made to believe that. What does that say? Let me see what that says.
Deplorable.
Deplorable. Yes,
2016.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. You know, and
I wore this to the grocery store once, and I was getting into my car, and some guy came up to me and said, "Nice shirt, like your
yeah,
shirt."
yeah.
You know, and
Well,
I didn't even think about that. I had this on, and I was kind of worried that I might have some idiot yelling at me, like you see on
right,
those
right.
YouTube and Facebook, where some guy
Yeah,
grabs
yeah,
some kid's hat, and oh, and then how about that kid that had that staring match with that Indian? What was that?
yeah,
The Churchill, no, not Churchill, but Livingston. But anyway, and how the
yeah,
media just totally distort and destroy that kid's life, and how he's turned around and he's suing a lot of these media outlets. I think CNN is being sued for $200
yeah.
million
Well,
dollars,
yeah,
and
and
I
the
hope
thing
he
was, they
wins.
really, yeah, I hope he does too. They tried, that was a school group, and
Yes,
they edited out the part in which the guy was
yeah.
uh,
What's Chris say? Oh,
yeah,
Night Train's
yeah,
in the house.
yeah.
All
Night Train's
right.
in the house. Yes,
Welcome,
yeah,
Night Train.
but I mean, it's just uh, yeah, I'd seen he'd popped in. I'm kind of trying to keep track of the chat too, but
Yeah, yeah, me
I
too.
will say one thing about living in Oklahoma. We are the only state in the United States that every single county went for Donald Trump.
Wow. That's
I mean,
true.
when they showed the map of Oklahoma, we were the only one that had zero blue in it that year.
Wow.
Yeah. So 2016 was a good year for Oklahoma as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
Now, and I said, is Donald Trump the
The evil
most
man.
personable person?
He's
Well, he's not evil,
racist. He's
but
bigoted, sexist,
he's
homophobe.
well, he's certainly, I'll say this much for him: he certainly isn't anti-foreign because both of his wives have been, we
Right.
don't count we don't count the one in the middle because she was an idiot. She was an airhead idiot, anyways. But that's besides. She's from Hollywood. What do you expect?
Yeah, that's true.
Her problem was that she wore her bra too tight. It was cutting off circulation to her brain. Uh, oh, did I just say that live? I'm sorry, Art. This is your channel. I'm being rude. What was her name? Maple? Was it Marla Maples? Was
Marla
that number
Maple,
two?
yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. She was.
God, I forgot about her. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't keep track between his daughter, his first wife, and second wife because all their names sound alike. So,
Yeah, that's right.
it's like, couldn't he
Melania,
get one married
Ivanka, and
named,
yeah.
yeah, couldn't he have married one that's name is, Sally? I mean, he married Marla, but that was a kind of a, uh, yeah, that was a waste of time for everybody. Anybody goes around calls him the Donald. Like, really?
Yeah. Yeah,
Just
everybody remembers him from The Apprentice, his show The
yeah,
Apprentice, and I think
yeah,
that's where he gets a lot of grief there because says you're fired, and
yeah. Here's
they
what a
all
lot of
think
people
he's this
don't.
big jerk.
Yeah, here's what a lot of people don't know. Did you know he is the only president of the United States to ever be in the WWE Hall of Fame?
No, I did not know
World
that.
World World Wrestling Entertainment. He is a member of the Hall of Fame. Yes,
Wow. Hmm.
because they had the Battle of the Billionaires, I think, or the
Right.
Millionaires,
Hmm.
against him and uh. Okay, Chris. Well, thanks for stopping by. I hope we didn't bore you
Yeah.
too
Thanks
badly.
for
And
stopping in, Chris. And also, you know, 20, 30 years ago, the left loved him. he was, loved by
Yeah.
the media, and he won all sorts of awards from the NAACP. He's probably the only Republican to ever get an award from the NAACP. But just because he ran as a Republican, they all hate him. He's the devil now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that just goes to show, I mean, he's not your typical conservative.
No.
He's not your typical Republican. He's got conservative business values, you
Yes.
know.
Right.
And this, I said this about Ronald Reagan, and I'm saying it again, with Ronald Reagan, before that, we had so many guys up there trying to act like they were president and failing miserably
Yeah.
that we finally hired a professional actor to do it right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, we had so many guys trying to run this country like a business, and none of them had any clue how to run a business. We finally hired a businessman to run this country like a business, and that's why it's doing so well now.
Mm-hmm. Now, and they're all trying to compare Donald Trump to Richard Nixon, who was probably the most liberal Republican in my lifetime. Because he's the one that started with all these alphabet departments, like the excuse me, the Department of Education. No, I think that was under Jimmy Carter.
That was under Johnson.
Department of Education. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I have to look it up too. That's I didn't do my homework today. I'd already been on a stream this morning, so I was on with Claude's show this morning because something come up, and I've been going at this. I've been on this. I did a live stream of my own, but I didn't broadcast it out. I just was testing the system with Mel this morning,
Right.
and it was a success. So
Good.
I've got some new features coming in, and then I was on with Claude to ask him to come on as he's going to be co-host, but you're going to be the guest.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Tomorrow. So, and I'll walk you through that later. But
Super. All right. Well.
But yeah, and Richard Nixon. One quick side note about Richard Nixon, then I'll shut up and let you finish your show the way it should be, instead of me hogging it all. Richard Nixon is actually related to me.
Oh, he is. Wow.
Yes. As a matter of fact, he's got 2 Mendenhall ancestors.
Oh my. Huh.
And they're in the Millhouse line.
Okay.
But we go back to the same guy that got off the boat, But yeah, so he's one of the. See, there's a lot of Mendenhalls back up in Pennsylvania and up in that part of the country, because my family came over here with William Penn, and so they settled up there in Pennsylvania, and there's a lot of them still there, and they're all Quakers. Unfortunately,
that's right.
my family line left the Quakers, and we've been poor ever since. The rest of them got money, we don't.
Well, you just need one of those hats and the big hair.
That's it. Yeah, I don't think I could do that. Yeah, nah.
Well, my ancestry goes back to Connecticut, and then they moved on through Pennsylvania. But that's a whole nother show, so we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the Mendenhall line, and and who knows, we might be related distantly, but
you can never tell.
Yep, I found out I've got relatives that were former senators, but that's another story. So,
right, exactly.
I just wanted to thank you so much for this inaugural send-off with my good friend Lloyd Mendenhall. Thank you very much. You did a good job. Yeah, the other way. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm pointing that way. You got to point that way.
There you go. There we go. Yeah, I always do that. I do that every time.
You got to remember, it's like a mirror. You got to point the opposite way you think you should be pointing.
Yes, I know. And I know that. I've been doing this long enough, but I still forget.
So I think this is a good start. We actually had people jumping in, which is good. Thomas O'Sullivan, Night Train, and Chris Hope. Hopefully, those people will, recommend our programming here. And maybe later this week we could do something to, make this a little more presentable, make it a little more, look like a conservative show, maybe some more flags and make it look more patriotic and all that stuff. So how'd you like my emblem, the AP with the
I
radio
like
mast
that.
at the
Yes.
top?
Yeah, I like that. And I need a copy of that picture if you can email it to me.
Okay.
Uh, of
Well, if
just
I
the
don't have
AP.
it,
So
I know that Mel's got it because he designed it.
oh, okay. Well, I'll contact, I'll be talking to him tonight and I'll have
Well,
him mail it
all
to me
right,
then.
that'd be great. And then, yeah, so let's work on that. Let's make this show a really good show. So thank you for being on, and I look forward to tomorrow to be on the show. So let's close this out and see you next time on Art's
All right.
Place.
Thanks a lot for having me on here. And I'm Lloyd Mendenhall, the Grumpy Vlogger. Thanks for having me on, Art.
Alrighty, there we go. Shut down the stream.